Yeah, sometimes things just work out. Let's take a little tour of the G-Wagen. This is a Mercedes G550, and if you can't tell, well, because it's kind of hard to tell, this is the all-new 2019 model, which has been fully redesigned for the most part. It's a lot more livable than the outgoing G-Wagen. It loses the solid front axle and gains fully independent front suspension, which is a lot better for on-road driving. It still has the same engine as the outgoing G. It's a twin-turbo V8 putting out 416 horsepower. It's pretty fast, plenty fast, but if you need more power, there's a G63 that is, kind of on a whole other level. This is actually pretty much a base model G550. The only option that it has is adaptive suspension. Other than that, though, it's pretty basic. It's got the entry-level 19-inch wheels, but it still has everything that you could pretty much want out of a $130,000 luxury SUV. It's got all kinds of crazy features like massaging seats with active side bolsters that actually move when you steer in order to account for the mild G-forces that I guess you feel when you're in a turn. So they kind of compensate for if you're taking a left turn and you might slide to the right bolster comes out to keep you in place. It's a really cool feature. On the outside here, like I mentioned, 19-inch wheels riding on these Pirelli Scorpion Zero all-season tires. Just like on the old G, you've got your V8 badge, you've got this line trim piece running across the belt line here. You've got your good old fender-mounted turn signals that say Mercedes-Benz right there. Brush guard, round headlights, Mercedes roundel on the hood here. Very upright windshield. One thing you'll notice is that this thing takes a lot of bugs. Oh, there's a really big one up in the corner over there. But yeah, we've driven like 50 miles in the mountains up here, and I've used the windshield cleaner fluid several times, and yeah, bugs just kind of splat all over this thing. Hey, there's a live one. Anyway, moving on. Running boards. I usually don't like running boards on 4x4s, but these are actually up really high, and they don't really get in the way. They could almost be a little more prominent. There isn't a lot of real estate here for you to put your foot on when you're getting in and out of the vehicle. So maybe not super practical, but as far as maintaining off-road capability goes, those are pretty nice. We'll take a look underneath here where there are a lot of skid plates. One cool thing about the G is it still has dual exhaust pipes, well, I guess quad exhaust tips, but they come out under here, like right underneath the back door, rather than coming out the back, which is kind of cool. There's another set of tips on the other side. You can see lots of protection under here. You've got skid plates over over just about everything. Like I said, independent front suspension, solid rear axle, adaptive suspension, which I'll show in just a moment here. As we move around to the back, you can get a really good look at the shock absorbers. There you go. It looks like they've got piggyback reservoirs, and there's your electronic component. Just like the old G, this thing has locking center, rear, and front differentials. It's one of like 5 vehicles on sale new today that has a locking front diff. This thing has a pretty respectable towing capacity. You can see right there. Oops. You can see right there, 7,000 pound towing capacity. You've got a 7-pin connector right here. And then here's your 2-inch receiver hitch. Looks like this thing's already been off-road. And a pretty heavy duty, looks like a recovery hook. I think that's mounted to the frame. Don't quote me on that, but like everything else on this vehicle, yeah, that's solid. Anyway, you've still got the rear mounted spare tire, something a little bit novel about this. it looks like to remove the spare tire, something I've always wondered about on these vehicles. You undo this piece, and then it looks like this chrome collar loosens if it doesn't come off fully, and then you have access to the tire that way. Still got the old school swing out rear here. We've got some blankets in the back, and rear cargo area isn't huge. It's very upright, but you know, this vehicle kind of has the stigma of being large and in charge and in your face, but in reality it's actually a little bit smaller than the Toyota 4Runner. For reference, rear cargo volume back here comes out at about 40 cubic feet, whereas in the 4Runner that's about 50 cubic feet. I find myself comparing this vehicle to the 4Runner a lot just because it's the same size and it has a solid rear axle. I know that's probably sacrilegious, but as far as off-roaders go, they are somewhat similar. Anyway, moving on to the interior. So before we jump in, I just want to show off the door locks here. So I'll lock the doors. Listen to how awesome this sounds. Super mechanical, super German. This vehicle is built in Austria. Everything's very precise. And climbing inside. So I mentioned this is pretty much a base model. So it doesn't have any of the crazy ostentatious interior trim or leather colors. It's honestly very tasteful in here. So you've got these really light beige, cream, whitish, off-white leather seats to go with an otherwise black interior. This brushed aluminum here is super clean, like I said, very tasteful. And then your trim is this natural wood here, which is real wood. You can see the pores there. It's really nice to the touch. Each one is actually an individually cut piece that looks like they've all been glued together, so they all go this way. And that comes here behind the infotainment controls, and it's over here on the grab handle, which is more or less carried over from the old G, and it's on the door panels as well. I'll close the door. Listen how great this sounds. The doors are actually really heavy. You have to slam them. It took me a few times to get used to that. Anyway, I'll start her up here. So it manages to sit on the line between being super quiet and super posh, and also a little bit ruckus when you want it to be. So the infotainment dashboard layout I really enjoy. It's all very linear. It's kind of flat across here. You can see this is all one plane, the gauge cluster and the infotainment screen. I believe some other modern Mercedes are like that as well. Infotainment screen's nice and wide, pretty intuitive. One of the options that you can get on this that this vehicle does not have is a fully digital gauge cluster. Some people like the old school mechanical gauges. Some people would probably like the gauge clusters, the digital gauge clusters, so you know, I can't say that one is necessarily better than the other. Paddle shifters. There's your locking center, rear, and front differentials, and they're actually labeled 1, 2, and 3. I think to designate that you'd want to use this one first, this one second, and then this one third, only once these other two are active. Your four-wheel drive controls are right here, and in case you're wondering, the gear selector is right here. It takes some getting used to. It's not your everyday column shifter. To go into drive, you press down. To go into reverse, you press up. To go into neutral, you press down, but not all the way down. Tells you, and permanently active, risk of rolling away. And then to put the vehicle in park, you press this button out here, this little chrome button right there. So we go park. Yeah. Otherwise, these vents are really nice. You know, like I said, push button start. Actually, it looks like pieces of the N and the G are already starting to wear off. Worth mentioning. There's some good storage under here. 2 cup holders. Center console storage bin's nice. I've got a cable and a phone in here right now. pretty good space. I mentioned the active seat bolsters. I can't really show them right now, but they trust me, they're very cool. Fully LED ambient lighting. You can see the blue right now. Kind of. There you go. You can see the blue. You can change the colors via the controls here. It's got a couple different drive modes. I'll show. It's in Eco. You can go to Comfort, Sport, and the engine note actually changes once you're in Sport mode, and then Individual, which allows you to, which you can configure through these controls here. You can configure, I believe, steering, engine, suspension, and whether start-stop is on. Anyway, up top, nice frameless rear view mirror there. Nice big sunroof with a manual visor here that I like. Nice Alcantara feel headliner. I'll give you a quick look at the second row. Onto the door panel while we're here. You know, in typical Mercedes fashion, the seat controls are on the door panel, and then your unlock, lock, ventilated seats, heated seats, and then window controls are up here on top of the door. Anyway, back seat real quick. We've got some things back here, but just to give you a quick idea of the back seat. Headrests are super functional. You can move them up and all kinds of things. Map pocket back here. Heated second row, and then your second row. So you can see there's a decent amount of space. I'm about 5'11", and yeah, that's about how much space is left behind me when I'm driving. Yeah, second row AC controls. Yeah, this thing is super cool. And listen to the doors one more time. Oh yeah. I'll turn it off. And there is your tour of the all-new 2019 Mercedes G550. Thank you for watching.